My daughter-in-law calls me a parasite. She lives under my roof, in the house I own, and tells my son I'm a burden. They're planning to move me, to remodel me right out the door. But there's a secret in the attic. My late husband made me promise to keep it. Now, that secret is the only weapon I have left to survive what she's planning. My name is Evelyn Hart. I am 62 years old, and for the last 5, I've been a widow. I live in a quiet, 2-story house in the suburbs just outside Denver, the kind of place where the lawns are tidy and nothing much happens. I was dusting the mantel, polishing the frame of a photo of my son, Ryan, when he was small. I've always called this Ryan's house. It felt right. It was the house I'd raised him in, the house his father, Mark, had loved. Now, I was cleaning it for his wedding. That night, when the house was still, I did something I had not done in months. I climbed the folding stairs to the attic, the air thick with cedar and old memories. Tucked behind a stack of Mark's college yearbooks was the small, fireproof safe. My fingers, slightly stiff with arthritis, worked the combination. Inside, beneath my old passports, was a sealed manila envelope. I pulled it out, the original deed to the house, bearing my name and my name alone. Beside it, Mark's old will, the one he'd had drawn up just before the end. I traced the raised seal of the notary. I did not need to open it. I knew Mark's words by heart. "Don't tell Ryan yet, Evie," he'd whispered, his voice thin but firm in that sterile hospital room. "Not until he proves he's chosen the right person to trust." It was a promise I'd kept, a secret that left a coating of guilt on my tongue. But it also felt like Mark's arm was still wrapped around me. I put everything back, clicking the safe shut, making it look untouched. I hurried down just as Ryan's car pulled up. The engagement party was small, just close friends in our living room. Ryan, my sweet, earnest Ryan, beamed as he introduced his fiancée. "Mum, this is Jenna Moore." She was 28, sharp as a tack, and beautiful in that polished corporate way. She worked in marketing, Ryan said proudly, for a fintech company called Northbridge Digital. She smiled, but her eyes were busy. I watched Jenna glide through the dining room, her gaze sweeping over the crown molding, the hardwood floors, the bay window. It was not the look of someone enjoying a home. It was the look of someone appraising an asset. Later, I heard her laugh, a light, tinkling sound, as she leaned into Ryan by the fireplace. "Ryan, darling," she said, just loud enough for me to hear. "We are going to have to remodel everything later. I simply cannot live in this museum style." "Museum?" The word stung. This house was not bricks and mortar to me. It was Ryan's first steps. It was Mark's laughter echoing off the kitchen walls. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself I was just an overprotective mother. But a knot of worry tightened in my stomach. Did she see anything here besides money? My anxiety spiked a week before the wedding. Ryan caught me in the kitchen, looking unusually nervous. "Mom," he started, fiddling with a coffee mug. "Jenna and I were looking at loans for the repairs. It would be so much easier if my name was on the house too. Could you sign some papers just to add me? It would help us get the capital to fix the place up." Ice shot through my veins. I forced a fluttery, confused laugh. "Oh, Ryan. Paperwork. At my age. All those legal forms, they just terrify me. Can't it wait until after the honeymoon? My head is spinning with all the wedding details. He backed off, frustrated but accepting. I turned away, leaning against the counter, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to keep the secret. The wedding itself was lovely, a small service in a local chapel. Jenna was the perfect bride, clinging to Ryan's arm. In front of everyone, she was the model daughter-in-law, squeezing my hand, thanking me for everything. But during the reception, while I was looking for the restroom, I passed a small alcove. I heard Jenna's voice, low and crisp, entirely different from the sweet tone she used with Ryan. She was on her phone. "No, it is fine," she was saying. "It's a fixer-upper, but the equity is insane. If the shortcut to equity means putting up with one old woman for a little while, I'll play." I froze. One old woman. That night, back at the house, they toasted champagne in the living room. I raised my glass. The smile plastered on my face, feeling heavy and fake. "Congratulations," I managed. Jenna beamed, kissing Ryan. As they talked about their future, my eyes drifted up. I stared at the plaster ceiling, right at the spot where, one floor above us, the attic safe held the truth. A secret that, I suddenly realized, might not just be protecting me. It might be the only thing that could save me. They moved in 3 months after the honeymoon. "Just temporarily, Mum," Ryan had assured me, his arm draped around his new wife's shoulders. "Just until we save up for a deposit." But Jenna arrived with an army of boxes and an agenda. She started with the living room sofa, the heavy, comfortable floral one Mark and I had bought together after Ryan was born. It was hauled away and replaced by a low, grey, modern thing that looked stylish but felt like sitting on a concrete bench. Then it was the paint. The warm beige in the hallway became a sterile, cold white. "We just need to brighten the space," she announced. "Create some new energy." Her new energy mostly involved erasing Mark. His favourite recliner, the one with the worn spot on the right armrest where his hand always rested, was the first to go. "We'll put this in the garage sale." "Evelyn," she said, not asked. I tried to be accommodating. I tried to be the easy mother-in-law. I told myself it was just furniture. But every item she tagged for removal, every painting she took down, felt like a fresh cut, a tiny erasure of my life with him. That weekend, while they were at brunch, I started moving things. Mark's reading glasses from the nightstand, his favourite flannel jacket, the one that still smelled faintly of his aftershave, the box of photographs from our trip to the Grand Canyon. I carried them, one by one, up to the small, locked storage room off the attic, the one space she hadn't bothered to explore yet. I turned the key, feeling like a thief in my own home. I started hearing my son echo her words. "Jenna's worried you're, well, holding on too much." "Mom," Ryan said hesitantly one evening, avoiding my eyes as he dried a plate. "She thinks you have a tendency to hoard." Hoard, I was keeping memories, not trash. "She just thinks," he continued, placing the dish in the rack, "that maybe this big house is too much for you to manage alone. That maybe we should look at a smaller place for you. Something cozier, easier to take care of." The seed was planted. She was trying to uproot me. The atmosphere in the house grew thick and suffocating. I started spending more time in my bedroom, reading, just to be out of her way. One evening, I was walking down the hall and paused outside their closed door. intending to ask if they wanted tea. I heard Jenna's voice, sharp and dismissive, not her usual sweet tone. "I am so tired of the pension leech just sitting there," she hissed. I stopped breathing. "Look, as soon as she agrees to sell the house, we're golden. We can pay off my student loans, get that new car. We just need her signature. No more mortgage payments after that." A pension leech. She saw me as a parasite, feeding off a house she already considered hers. Ryan came to me a few days later. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes. I could see the financial pressure weighing on him, and I knew Jenna was twisting the screws. "Mom?" He sat beside me on the new, uncomfortable sofa. "Jenna and I were talking. What if we sold this place? It's too big for 3 people. We could buy a nice townhouse, all 3 of us. We could put it in all our names. Make it fair." I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised to be honest and kind, and I saw a stranger's words coming out of his mouth. The hurt was sharp, a physical ache in my chest. But beneath the pain, something hardened. Mark's warning echoed in my ears. I was not just protecting the house. I was protecting my survival. And I knew, with chilling certainty, that Ryan had never owned this house, and he would not, as long as this woman had her claws in him. Jenna's next move was to take control of the money. "Evelyn, you shouldn't have to worry about all these bills," she said, smiling brightly at the kitchen table. "Why don't you let me manage the household finances? It's what I do at Northbridge. After all, it just makes sense. I'll need the utility accounts, the mortgage information, any insurance policies." She held her hand out, expectant. I stalled, telling her I'd have to find them, that my filing system was old-fashioned. That night, I went to the pharmacy and used their photocopier. I made copies of the deed, the trust, the insurance declarations. I hid the copies in the locked room upstairs, with Mark's flannel jacket. The tension finally broke at dinner the following Sunday. I'd made Mark's favourite roast, and the silence was heavy. Jenna suddenly put her fork down. "It's just amazing, isn't it?" she said, looking at Ryan but speaking to me. "How our generation has to hustle for everything, working 60-hour weeks just to get ahead, while some older people just get to live, free of charge, enjoying the benefits." The insult was so direct, so blatant, it stole my breath. This wasn't just youthful selfishness. This wasn't just a clash of styles. This was a calculated campaign. I knew I was right 2 nights later. I came downstairs for a glass of water, long after midnight. The light in the study, Mark's old office, was on. I peered around the doorframe. Jenna was at the desk, not sitting, but hunched over, pulling open the drawers. She was muttering to herself, frantically shuffling through files. "Where is it? Where is the damn home insurance policy?" She wasn't just organizing, she was hunting. Her movements were quick, desperate. I stood in the darkness of the hallway, and for the first time, I felt a genuine tremor of fear. I wasn't just being difficult. I wasn't just a pension leech. I was a problem she was actively trying to solve. I was being hunted. Jenna's hunt for the insurance papers must have been a failure, because a week later, she tried a new tactic. She arranged a meeting in our living room. "Evelyn," she said, her voice dripping with manufactured sweetness. "This is a wonderful credit consultant from a group I work with. Solace Home Finance. He's just going to talk to us about refinancing the house. With the market the way it is, we could pull out so much equity. It would really benefit all of us. The man, slick and smiling, sat on the grey sofa that still looked alien to me. He spoke in a rapid stream of acronyms and percentages, talking about arm rates and amortization schedules. I adopted the role Jenna had cast for me, the confused, slightly deaf old woman. I nodded. I asked vague questions about the mortgage Mark and I had paid off 20 years ago, and I pretended I could not follow the math. But I was watching. I memorized the stylized, sharp S of the logo on his leather portfolio. Solace Home Finance. That night, sleep was impossible. I waited until I heard the distinct click of their bedroom door shutting, followed by the low murmur of their television. I went to Mark's study, in the bottom drawer of his desk, beneath stacks of old tax returns, was his old laptop. It whined as it booted up, the screen casting a blue glow in the dark room. His password was our anniversary, a date I could never forget. I opened his email client, an old program I barely recognized. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe mortgage statements, maybe bank records. Instead, my eyes caught a folder I had never noticed before, labeled simply Estate. I clicked it. My heart stopped. It was a chain of correspondence, dated just months before Mark died, with a name I had never heard, Monica Reyes, attorney at law. My hands were shaking. Why had he hired another lawyer? I found the number in the signature line. The next morning, my nerves raw. I drove to a nearby park and dialed from my cell phone, fully expecting the number to be disconnected. Law Office of Monica Reyes, a professional voice answered. Hello, I stammered, my voice sounding weak. My name is Evelyn Hart, my late husband. My husband was Mark Hart. I think he worked with you. There was a brief, sharp silence on the line. Mrs. Hart, the voice said, suddenly warm but retaining its precision. Yes, I remember the Hart case very clearly. I have been wondering if you would ever call. Her office was small, neat, and tucked away on the second floor of an older building in downtown Denver. Monica Reyes was a woman in her late 40s, with intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She didn't waste time. Evelyn, she said, sliding a thick, bound document across the desk toward me. I am so glad you came. Your husband was a very smart man. He was worried. She explained everything. The secret I was guarding in the attic safe, the deed in my name, was only the first layer. After his final diagnosis, Mark, knowing his son's trusting nature, had quietly taken a final step. He had established an irrevocable living trust. He moved the entire property into the trust, Monica explained, tapping a specific clause. You, Evelyn, are the sole trustee and the sole beneficiary. He wrote it specifically to protect the asset from any future claims, including, and I quote, any spouse, partner, or creditor of my son, Ryan Hart. She let the words sink in. Legally, she continued, Ryan has never been a co-owner of this house. It is not marital property. It is not his property. Any mortgage they try to take out, any loan Jenna tries to secure using this house as collateral, is fraudulent and void, not without your signature, as the trustee. A dizzying wave of relief washed over me, so strong I had to grip the arms of the chair. The promise Mark had extracted from me wasn't just a dying man's wish, it was an iron-clad legal shield. But the relief was immediately followed by a cold dread. If the house was legally untouchable through Ryan, Jenna couldn't get it by manipulating him into signing. She would have to get it through me. What can she do? I whispered. Monica leaned forward, her expression turning grim. This is the hard part. Evelyn, if your daughter-in-law, or this Solace company, understands this level of law, they will stop trying to get you to sign the house over. They will try to prove you are incapable of managing your own affairs. They will petition for guardianship. If they can get a court to declare you mentally incompetent, they can have you removed as trustee. Then the trust, and the house, falls right into their hands. This was a new, terrifying layer. This wasn't just a fight for my home. It was a fight for my mind. Please, I said, finding a sliver of new resolve. Don't say anything yet. I don't want to alert them. I need to know what they're doing. I told her about the pension leech comment, about the man from Solace. Can you just check? Can you see if anyone has tried to use my address on a loan application? Monica nodded, a grim smile touching her lips. I can run a public records search and a full title check. I will call you the second I see any unusual activity. You're doing the right thing. Evelyn, stay quiet and watch everything. I left her office feeling both empowered and terrified. I drove home through the late afternoon traffic, the Denver skyline blurry through my tears. I pulled onto my street just as dusk was settling. My stomach turned to ice. Parked in my driveway, right behind Ryan's car, was a black sedan. On the driver's side door, I could just make out the stylized S logo in the fading light. Solace Home Finance. I fumbled with my house key, my hands trembling. I pushed the front door open. In the living room, sitting on my sofa, was Jenna, laughing as she handed a drink to a strange man. He was older than the consultant, with cold, assessing eyes. The moment I stepped into the foyer, the laughter stopped. It didn't fade. It was cut off, as if by a switch. Jenna's smile vanished, replaced by a mask of pure annoyance. The man turned his head slowly, his eyes raking over me. The air in the room turned thick and hostile, and I knew, with absolute certainty, I had just interrupted the next phase of their plan. Jenna's annoyance vanished, replaced instantly by her bright, false smile as she rose from the sofa. Evelyn, you're home. This is Ethan Blake, a colleague of mine from Northbridge. He's a senior financial expert. Ethan Blake stood. He was older than the first consultant, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. He did not smile. He nodded, his cold eyes sweeping the room, the staircase, and the entryway, as if he were measuring the square footage with his gaze. A pleasure, Mrs. Hart, he said, his voice a smooth baritone. In his hand, he held a sleek leather folder. Embossed on the cover was the sharp, stylized S logo, Solace Home Finance, not Northbridge. Ryan is stuck in traffic, unfortunately, Jenna said, sitting again, crossing her legs. But Ethan was just explaining some wonderful options for us. For you. Ethan opened the folder. This time, the pitch was different. Given your position? Evelyn, he began. Refinancing isn't really the optimal path. What we should be discussing is a reverse mortgage. He spoke the words as if they were a gift. It's a fantastic product for seniors. It allows you to access the equity you've spent your whole life building, tax-free. You could travel, remodel, enjoy your retirement comfortably, with no more worries about money. He was trying to lead me into admitting I was poor, that I was a burden. I leaned into the role Jenna had already cast for me. I put a hand to my ear. A what? Dear A reverse. Mortgage, oh, my... That sounds so complicated. Mark and I paid off our mortgage back in... Oh, was it 1998? I'm just not very good with these numbers. I'm afraid I don't have many bills to worry about. Thank goodness. I gave him a vacant, pleasant smile. I talked about the unpredictable Colorado weather. I asked if he liked my hydrangeas. After 20 minutes of my cheerful, senile rambling, Ethan's smooth veneer was cracking. He snapped his folder shut, giving Jenna a look of pure, unadulterated frustration. The meeting was a failure. That night, I heard their voices rising from behind their closed bedroom door. She's losing it. Ryan. Jenna's voice was sharp, a distinct contrast to the sweet tone she used in public. She's completely incoherent. She didn't understand a single word. She asked Ethan his name 3 times. A lie. I had not. She forgot the plumber was coming yesterday. Jenna continued, her voice rising in theatrical desperation. She left a kettle on the stove until it boiled dry. What if she burns the house down? Ryan. She is not safe. They were lies. All of them. But she was building her case, stone by stone, poisoning my son, turning every minor, normal lapse of a 62-year-old woman into a symptom of advanced dementia. The attack came 2 days later. The doorbell rang just after 10 in the morning. I opened it to find 2 women. One was younger, dressed in a practical blazer, holding a clipboard. The other was a middle-aged woman with tired, intelligent eyes and a kind face. Mrs. Evelyn Hart, the younger one asked. All business. I'm Sarah, from Denver County Adult Protective Services. This is Dr. Lila Brooks. We are here, at the request of your family, to conduct a preliminary competency evaluation. My blood turned to ice. My stomach dropped. My family. Yes, Sarah said, checking her clipboard. The request for an evaluation was filed by a Mr. Ryan Hart. Ryan. She had done it. She had convinced my son to sign the paper that declared his own mother mentally unstable. I had to grip the doorframe to keep from falling. Please, come in, I whispered. We sat in the living room, on the cold, grey sofa. Jenna, naturally, emerged from the kitchen, her face a mask of worried concern. Oh, thank goodness you're here, she breathed, rushing over. I'm Jenna, Ryan's wife. We've just been so worried. The evaluation began. Sarah asked the baseline questions, but Jenna kept interrupting, her voice filled with fake anxiety. She's been leaving the stove on. Dr. Brooks. I came down last week, and the gas burner was just hissing. A lie. And the front door. She forgets to lock it. Constantly. I'm terrified we'll all be murdered in our beds. A lie. I sat there, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were white. I knew I couldn't get hysterical. I had to be the sanest person in the room. Finally, Dr. Brooks held up a hand. Thank you, Jenna. I would like to hear from Evelyn now. Perhaps you could give us some privacy. Jenna's face soured, but she couldn't refuse. She left the room. Dr. Brooks turned her full attention to me. Her gaze was not hostile. It was deeply perceptive. Evelyn? She said, her voice calm. Tell me about your finances. Who pays the bills? I took a deep breath. I explained the property taxes, which I paid semi-annually from the trust account Mark had established. I detailed the small pension I received from Mark's union. I listed my 2 daily medications, their exact dosages, and the name of my cardiologist. I told her the date, the year, and the name of the current governor. When Sarah, the social worker, glanced down at her folder, I added, "And happy belated birthday, Sarah. I see the card peeking out of your binder. October 26th. You're a Libra." Sarah looked up, stunned. The evaluation ended. Jenna was hovering in the hallway, her eagerness palpable. "So, what's the conclusion? Dr. Brooks looked at Jenna, her expression hardening almost imperceptibly. "Mrs. Hart is, in my professional opinion, perfectly competent. She is also under an immense amount of stress, clearly related to the current family conflict." She turned to me, handing me her card. "If you need to talk, Evelyn, please call." Jenna was seething. She had fired her legal weapon, and it had failed. The report would not find me incompetent. It would note family stress. As I watched them walk to their car, I had the distinct feeling that Dr. Brooks had been evaluating Jenna just as much as she had been evaluating me. That night, Ryan was working late. The mask of the concerned daughter-in-law was gone. Jenna cornered me as I was washing my teacup. "You are a good actress," she spat, her voice low and venomous. "You fooled her. But this isn't over." She stepped closer. "You cannot keep this house forever. Evelyn, the law is on our side." Our side. There it was. Not Ryan's side. Our side. The casual admission that she believed she already had a legal claim. She stormed upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, my heart hammering. But it was not with fear. It was with a cold, clear fury. She had failed to get me to sign. She had failed to have me declared insane. She had brought the system into my home, and she would not stop. Monica's warning about guardianship echoed in my head. I went to my room and locked the door. I pulled the small white card from my pocket. Dr. Lila Brooks. Jenna had pulled the system into this fight. Now, so would I. "Dr. Brooks," I said, when she answered on the second ring. "This is Evelyn Hart. You were right about the stress, but you don't know the half of it. I need to tell you about a living trust, a company called Solace Home Finance, and I need you to recommend a very good, very discreet private investigator." I saw Dr. Brooks 3 more times, in the privacy of her office, not my home. I paid her in cash. On the 3rd visit, after I had laid out the story of the trust, the pension leech comments, and the men from Solace Home Finance, she steepled her fingers and looked at me with a quiet intensity. "Evelyn," she said, "you are not forgetful. You are not losing your mind. You are being systematically and intentionally gaslit. It's a classic, and cruel, form of psychological abuse." She reached into her desk and pulled out a simple, white business card. "I want you to call this man. His name is Caleb Ross. He's a private investigator. But he's not the kind you see on television. He's a former detective. Spent 15 years in the financial crimes unit for the Denver PD. He specializes in elder fraud, and he is very, very good." Caleb Ross's office was a cramped, messy room above a bagel shop, and it smelled of stale coffee and file folders. He was a large, rumpled man who looked perpetually tired. He listened to my story, his expression bordering on bored. I could see him categorizing me another elderly woman with a family dispute, paranoid about her daughter-in-law. "So, a living trust," a shady finance company, and a pushy daughter-in-law. He summarized, rubbing his eyes. Mrs. Hart. Family conflicts are messy. I did not let him finish. I reached into the large purse I'd brought and pulled out the photocopies, the deed, the full, bound copy of Mark's irrevocable trust, and the business card from the first Solace consultant. I placed them on the desk. His entire demeanor shifted. The bored exhaustion vanished, replaced by a sharp, focused attention. He put on a pair of reading glasses, picked up the trust, and began to read. He was silent for a full 10 minutes, his finger tracing the specific clauses Mark and Monica had written. Well, hell, he said, finally looking up at me. His skepticism was gone. She can't touch the house. Not through Ryan. He leaned back, his gaze analytical. That means she has to go through you. If Jenna and this Ethan character are trying to refinance, they're either stupid or they're using your address as collateral for something else entirely, hoping you're too confused to catch them. He picked up his phone. We need to run a full credit and title search on this property, on you and on your son, right now. I told him I already had a lawyer. When I said the name Monica Reyes, he nodded. Reyes. She's a bulldog. Good. A moment later, we had a conference call. A team was formed, right there on the phone. Monica, the legal strategist, Caleb, the field investigator, and me, the woman on the inside. My role began immediately. I felt a strange shift inside, a cold focus I hadn't felt in years. I went to the pharmacy and bought a simple, black and white composition notebook. I began to log everything. I was no longer a victim. I was a witness. 9:04 M. Jenna to Ryan. She looks confused again. 6:15 M. Ethan Blake's car, black sedan, arrived. Stayed 45 minutes. 10:30 p. M. Jenna on back patio, whispering phone call. Heard her say, the old woman's doctor, and not cooperating. While I became a chronicler, Caleb acted, with my permission. When Ryan and Jenna were at a work dinner, he came to the house. He was quiet and efficient. He installed a small magnetic tracking device inside the lip of the garage, aimed at the driveway. Logs every license plate that comes and goes, he murmured. He then plugged a small, pass-through device into the wall outlet by the internet modem. Monitors all Wi-Fi activity. We'll see what Solace Home Finance is really about. The first results came back 48 hours later, and they hit me harder than any insult. Caleb called me on my cell while I was in the garden. Evelyn, are you sitting down? He asked. The title on the house is clean, thanks to Mark's trust. They haven't been able to attach a lien, but that's not the whole story. He took a breath. They used your address, but not for a mortgage. We found a newly registered shell corporation, Milestone Holdings. 2 weeks ago, Milestone took out a substantial business loan, over $100,000. I didn't understand. What does that have to do with us? The collateral on the loan. Evelyn, Caleb said, his voice grim. It's listed as pending acquisition of your property address, and the digital signature on the loan guarantee. The man who signed for it. It was Ryan Hart. The world tilted. The gardening shears slipped from my hand. My son. She had maneuvered him, blinded him so completely that he had signed his name to a fraudulent document, using my house as the bait. I felt a wave of nausea. He wasn't just being manipulated, he was being turned into a criminal. And I realized, with chilling clarity, that Mark's trust was the only thing that had stopped that $100,000 debt from becoming a lien, the only thing that had kept the bank from already seizing my home. I met with Monica and Caleb the next day. "We have to tell Ryan," I pleaded. "No," Monica said, her voice sharp but not unkind. "Not yet. They've made their move, and they've done it sloppily, because they think you're incompetent. They think they're winning." She looked at me, her eyes firm. "Evelyn, this is the hardest part. You have to let them keep thinking that. You have to play the part. Be confused. Be weak. Let Jenna get overconfident. Let her make the next move. While she does, we will gather every piece of evidence we need to sever Ryan from this, and to make sure Jenna and Ethan Blake are the ones who face the consequences. We aren't just defending anymore. Evelyn, we're setting a trap." I went home and began the most difficult performance of my life. It felt like a betrayal of myself, of Mark's memory. But I knew what Monica had said was true. I had to let Jenna think she was winning. I started small. I forgot where I had put the car keys, which I'd hidden in my own pocket. I asked Jenna at dinner what time Ryan was coming home, 30 minutes after he had already walked in the door. I stood in the kitchen, looked at the coffee maker, and asked her where she had put the water boiler. Jenna's entire demeanor toward me softened. She was patient, condescending, and, above all, triumphant. I could see the relief in her eyes, the competent, sharp woman who had failed Dr. Brooks's test was gone, and the pension leech she had been waiting for was finally emerging. She wasted no time. I was in the living room, pretending to read, when I saw her approach Ryan at the kitchen table, a sheaf of papers in her hand. Her voice was a low, concerned murmur. "Ryan, honey," she said, stroking his back. "She's getting worse. You see it too. I can't handle all the bills and the house accounts on my own if she's not fully with us. This is just a financial power of attorney. It just lets me handle the bills for you, to protect us." I watched my son, his shoulders slumped in defeat, sign the papers. He was so lost, so convinced he was doing the right thing for his addled mother. "Jenna found a wonderful facility," he told me later, his eyes pleading with me to understand. "Top-rated. Mum. If the doctors agree she needs it, you'd be so well taken care of." The noose was tightening. The proof of their true intentions came from Caleb. He had tapped into the Wi-Fi monitoring, and Jenna and Ethan were careless, using an unsecured messaging app. Caleb played a recording for me over the phone. It was Jenna's voice, hard and confident. "He signed the POA," she was telling Ethan. "It's just a matter of time. Once she's in the facility, the trust doesn't matter. It's invalid if the trustee is incompetent. We get control of the guardianship, and it's a done deal. The house is ours." I met with Monica that afternoon, my hands shaking. "She's wrong about the trust," Monica said, her voice a cold, angry clip. "It's not invalid, but she's right about the guardianship. If she gets a judge to believe a fraudulent competency report, she can create a legal nightmare that could take years and all your money to undo. She's handing us the weapon." Monica's eyes met mine. "She is going to try to get you re-evaluated, Evelyn. And this time, you are going to let her win." Jenna brought it up that weekend. "Evelyn?" she said, her voice oozing synthetic sympathy. "Dr. Brooks was just a social worker. I've found a real specialist, a top neurologist, to give you a proper exam. just to make sure we're doing everything we can for you. The clinic was in a sleek, glass building. Jenna held my arm as we walked in, a perfect picture of a dutiful daughter-in-law. I knew Caleb was 2 cars behind us, in his rumpled sedan. He sat in the waiting room, pretending to read a magazine, his phone in his lap, recording. I saw him angle it just right as Jenna went to the check-in desk, speaking in a low voice to the doctor who had come out to greet her. "Thank you for seeing us, Doctor," Jenna murmured, just loud enough for Caleb's phone to pick up. "It's the memory, mostly. She's been hiding it, but she gets lost. She's very paranoid. She's even accused me of trying to steal from her. It's the paranoia we're most worried about." She was feeding him the symptoms, writing the diagnosis for him. The doctor, a man with a blank face and an expensive watch, nodded along, his eyes devoid of any warmth. He was cooperating far too easily. The test was designed for me to fail. I intentionally mixed up dates. I struggled to draw the face of a clock. I forgot 3 of the 5 words he asked me to repeat. I played the part of a confused, frightened, and declining old woman. Every wrong answer felt like a small death, a piece of my dignity flaking away. When I was done, I overheard Jenna on the phone in the hallway. She had stepped out, believing I was still with the nurse. She was speaking to Ethan, her voice giddy with victory. "We got it," she whispered, laughing. "He's writing the report right now. Mild cognitive decline, progressing to moderate dementia. Just need that paper filed with the court, and she has no more voice. She's done." I walked out, and she snapped her phone shut, smiling at me. "All done. Evelyn, let's go home." Driving back, I felt a terrifying hollowness. What if this backfired? What if Monica was wrong? What if they took this report, filed it, and a judge did strip me of my rights before we could stop them? I was willingly writing my own legal obituary. But I also knew, with a cold, hard certainty, that this report was the final piece of evidence. This was Jenna, in her own arrogant, greedy handwriting, committing medical fraud. The call came 2 days later. It was Monica. She sounded like a general about to give the order to advance. "I've got it, Evelyn," she said. Caleb had managed to get an early copy of the report through a contact. "It's exactly what we hoped for. Mild cognitive decline, exhibits paranoia, recommends supervised living. And that doctor, the clinic he works for, has been sued twice in the last 3 years for faking diagnoses to defraud insurance." I let out the breath I felt I'd been holding for a month. "That's enough," Monica said, a smile in her voice. "Jenna thinks she's about to file for guardianship, but she's too late. It's our turn to file with the court." Monica didn't just file a motion, she launched a preemptive strike. She filed an emergency petition with the county probate court. It wasn't just a response to Jenna's impending guardianship claim. It was an accusation. It included the full, ironclad trust, Dr. Lila Brooks's glowing competency report, and, as the final blow, the documented history of the 2 lawsuits against the private clinic for fraudulent diagnoses. She requested an immediate hearing to review what she called a coordinated attempt at predatory elder abuse and asset appropriation. The court summons arrived by courier. Jenna, who had been humming as she made her morning smoothie, took the legal envelope. I watched from the kitchen doorway as she tore it open. The colour drained from her face. She read it, then read it again, her hands beginning to shake. She has a lawyer, she hissed, her voice a low, strangled sound. She looked up at me, but not with the condescending pity of the last few weeks. For the first time, I saw pure, unadulterated hatred, and I saw fear. What is this? What did you do? The hearing is in less than 2 weeks. Jenna, I said, my voice steady, no longer playing the part. I suppose your plan to have me put away quietly will have to wait. The 2 weeks were a special kind of hell. Ryan was bewildered, caught between his wife's fury and my silence. Jenna tried to corner me, but I refused to be alone with her, always moving to a public space or locking myself in my room. The day of the hearing, I wore the blue suit I had worn to Mark's funeral. It was the only armor I had. Monica had prepped me. No emotion, she'd said. Just facts. You are not a victim today. You are a trustee. I sat at the table with Monica. Jenna and Ryan sat on the other side with an expensive-looking lawyer Jenna must have hired in a panic. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, read the petition. She looked over her glasses at me. Mrs. Hart, the judge began. Your daughter-in-law, through her counsel, has filed a counter-motion suggesting you are, in fact, in need of supervision. She claims your petition is proof of your paranoia. So, let's clear the air. Do you know where your assets are? I took a breath. Yes. Your Honor? My primary asset is the home, which is held in the Hart Family Irrevocable Trust, established in 2019. My pension, from my late husband's union, is deposited on the 3rd of every month into my account at Colorado First Bank. My Social Security is direct deposited on the 2nd Wednesday. My property taxes are paid in 2 installments, one in February, one in June. The trust dictates, I added, meeting her gaze, that I am the sole trustee, and any attempt to co-opt the property by a future spouse of my son is expressly forbidden. Jenna's lawyer sputtered. The judge silenced him with a glance. Then, Monica called the doctor from the private clinic to the stand. He was arrogant, but Monica, as Caleb had said, was a bulldog. Doctor, she said, you diagnosed Mrs. Hart with progressing dementia. What specific neurological tests did you perform? He faltered. We did a standard cognitive assessment, a verbal recall test. The one Mrs. Hart failed. Monica pressed. In your report, you note she exhibited paranoia. Did she tell you she was paranoid? She was defensive, the doctor said, shifting in his seat. Her daughter-in-law had warned me So you took the word of an interested party. Monica's voice was sharp. You didn't find it relevant that another medical professional, Dr. Lila Brooks, had evaluated Mrs. Hart just days earlier and found her fully competent and suffering from family-related stress. The judge was leaning forward now, her expression like granite. Your Honor, Monica said, turning to the judge. This was never a medical diagnosis. It was a financial one. She presented the next exhibit. It was a stack of emails Caleb had uncovered from the Wi-Fi monitor, communications between an IP address at the clinic and Ethan Blake at Solace Home Finance. It was a referral system. The clinic would diagnose elderly clients who were difficult, and Solace would help the family manage the newly acquired assets. The courtroom was silent. The judge's face was dark with anger. I am temporarily, and with prejudice, dismissing any and all petitions for guardianship over Mrs. Evelyn Hart, the judge declared, her voice ringing with authority. Furthermore, I am ordering a state investigation into this clinic and its practices. She glared at Jenna's lawyer. You're done here. Jenna had lost her soft path. The law, which she had tried to weaponize against me, had just protected me. I walked out of the courtroom, my legs shaking with relief. I felt like I had been pulled from a deep, dark water. Caleb was waiting in the hall. He nodded at me, but he wasn't smiling. You did good, Evelyn, but don't celebrate yet. What we won, the judge. You won the battle, he said, his voice low. You just proved to Jenna that the legal way isn't going to work. When a predator like her gets cornered, she doesn't give up. She gets dirty. Watch your back. Every single second. His words chilled me. He was right. That evening, Ryan, who had sat through the entire hearing looking like a ghost, approached me. Mom, he whispered. His eyes filled with a pain I recognized. I didn't know. She just said she was worried. You were so clear up there. Not like she said. He was wavering. He was seeing the truth. But before I could even respond, Jenna appeared in the hallway. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't angry. She was crying. She rushed to Ryan, throwing her arms around him, sobbing. They twisted everything. Ryan, she wept. I was just trying to protect us, to protect your mother. And now they think I'm a criminal. I was just trying to help our family. And just like that, with a flood of tears, she pulled him back. He held her, his back to me, his moment of clarity gone, replaced by his old role as her protector. I knew Caleb was right. I wasn't safe. Later that night, I looked out my bedroom window. Jenna was in her car in the driveway, not crying, her face illuminated by her phone. I couldn't hear her, but I could see her. She slammed her hand against the steering wheel, a single, violent motion. Then she put the phone to her ear. I could almost hear the words I knew she was saying to Ethan. Plan A failed. Now we just have to get her signature, no matter what it takes. The failure in court didn't make Jenna retreat. It made her reckless. She and Ethan had lost their legal leverage, so they escalated, moving from legal fraud to something far more dangerous. Their new plan, which Caleb intercepted, was to create an emergency. They needed to manufacture a crisis so severe I would be forced to sign temporary control over to Ryan control that would, in reality, validate the fraudulent paperwork for the Milestone Holdings loan. They're getting desperate. Caleb told me in a hurried meeting at Monica's office. His contact at the phone company had paid off. Ethan's first idea was arson, a small fire in the basement. He said they could blame it on your forgetfulness and collect the insurance money. My blood ran cold. Jenna shot it down. Caleb continued. Not out of morality. She said it was too hard to control. She wants something cleaner. He leaned forward, his eyes deadly serious. She's planning to stage an accident, something that looks self-inflicted, something that proves you're a danger to yourself. We have to stop them, I whispered. No, Monica said, her voice like ice. We're going to catch them. We stop them. They just try something else. And next time we won't see it coming. We let them walk right into the trap. The plan was set. Caleb had already installed a new, high-definition camera, disguised as a smoke detector, in the living room, replacing the Wi-Fi monitor. He gave me a device that looked like a simple key fob. It's a high-fidelity audio recorder, he said. Keep it in your pocket at all times. If she gets you alone, if she suggests a private talk, press this button. And Evelyn. He looked at me. Be scared. Be weak. Be the woman she thinks you are. The attempt came 3 nights later. The atmosphere in the house had been thick with unspoken tension since the hearing. Then, suddenly, Jenna was nice. Evelyn, she announced. I think we all need a reset. I'm going to make a proper family dinner, like we used to. The meal was surreal. She cooked a beautiful salmon, something she knew Mark had loved. She even bought a bottle of Chardonnay, my preferred wine. But the performance was flawed. Ryan sat there, a ghost at his own table, picking at his food, his eyes hollow. He was trapped, and his silence was more painful to me than Jenna's lies. I saw my son, lost, while this woman who had destroyed him smiled and spoke of starting fresh and being a family. It took all my strength to return the smile and grip the key fob in my pocket. After the plates were cleared, Jenna turned to Ryan, her voice full of wifely concern. Honey, that radiator on the second floor was making that awful clanking noise again. Could you please go up and check the pressure? I'm worried it'll wake the neighbors. Ryan, grateful for an escape, nodded and disappeared up the stairs. The moment his footsteps faded, Jenna's smile vanished. She turned to me. The play was over. Evelyn, she said, her voice all business. We need to talk. Privately. I fumbled with my napkin, my heart hammering. I pressed the button on the key fob in my pocket. Of course, dear. Out in the cold darkness of the street, I knew Caleb was in his car, watching the live feed from the new smoke detector. Monica was in her car, parked 2 blocks over, waiting for his signal. A uniformed officer Caleb trusted, his old partner, was on standby, just around the corner. Jenna reached into her purse and pulled out a thin stack of papers and a pen. I know the hearing was stressful for you, she said, sliding them onto the table. This is just a formality. It's a temporary measure to protect you from all those legal problems. It just lets Ryan handle the paperwork, so you don't have to worry about those awful lawyers anymore. I looked at the papers. I knew it was the loan guarantee for Milestone. I let my hand tremble. I don't know. Jenna? After the court. Her face hardened instantly, the mask of patience shattered. After the court, you still look like a paranoid old woman, she hissed. Do you really want to go back? Do you remember that accident last week? I knew what she meant. The day I'd come into the kitchen and the gas knob on the stove was turned on, the room smelling of sulphur. She had found it, blaming my forgetfulness. Now, I realized she had done it herself. It's amazing how things just happen around you, she continued, her voice a low threat. A gas leak, a forgotten prescription, a fall. She leaned in. If another accident happens. Evelyn, who do you think the court will believe, me or the crazy woman who the doctors already said is losing her mind? She had me cornered, and she knew it. I let a tear roll down my cheek. The performance of a lifetime. I'm just so tired, I whispered. Her expression softened into victory. I know you are, she said, her voice sickeningly sweet again. She reached back into her purse and took out a small, amber-colored medicine bottle. This will help. It's just a mild sedative. It will help you sleep soundly tonight. Just Sign the papers, and then you can take this, and all this stress will be over. She poured me a glass of water from the carafe on the table. She shook one small white pill into her palm and held it out. I looked at the pill. I looked at the glass of water. I looked at the pen. On the ceiling above us, the camera was rolling. My hand, shaking for real this time, reached out to take the glass. My hand trembled as I reached for the glass, exactly as Monica had instructed. Be the victim they expect, she'd said. I took the pill from Jenna's hand. I raised the glass to my lips, my eyes fluttering shut as if in exhaustion. I took the smallest sip of water, just enough to moisten my mouth, and let the pill rest under my tongue. As I lowered the glass, I brought the thick linen napkin to my lips, pretending to dab at them. In that one motion, I spat the tiny, bitter pill into the napkin's folds. I then picked up the pen, my hand shaking violently and slowly, agonizingly, signed my name. I signed Evelyn Hart on the document Jenna had given me. It was a useless signature on a useless piece of paper, a voided replica Monica had prepared, which had been swapped with the real documents in Jenna's briefcase days before. This was just the closing of the trap. Jenna let out a breath she seemed to have been holding all night. Victory flooded her face. She was so confident, so arrogant, that she grabbed her phone. "Ethan," she said, tapping the speaker button, "you are not going to believe this." She was putting him on speakerphone. She finally signed. The old bat finally signed. I heard his tinny voice reply. "And the trust, the court." Jenna laughed, a high, sharp sound. "Who cares about the trust or that stupid judge? It's done. The house is collateralized. It's over." She didn't know the key fob in my pocket was recording every word. She didn't know the camera in the smoke detector was capturing her triumphant, cruel face. And she didn't know about the baby monitor. Upstairs. In the room they'd turned into a nursery for a future they didn't deserve. The monitor was on. Jenna had left it on by mistake hours earlier. It was transmitting her voice to the receiver Ryan was holding as he stared at the radiator. He heard the whole exchange. He heard his wife's triumphant voice. He heard her add one more thing, a chilling, casual aside. "Honestly, the sooner she's in a facility, or hell, if she just dies somewhere else, the less trouble for us." Ryan's footsteps were heavy, thundering down the stairs. He burst into the dining room. His face was pale, slick with a cold sweat. He looked at me, sitting there. My eyes half closed as I began my performance of the sedative. He looked at Jenna, who was flushed with victory and adrenaline, fumbling to shut off her phone. "Jenna, what? What was that?" Ryan stammered, his eyes darting to the papers on the table. "What is going on?" Jenna's composure snapped back into place. "Ryan, honey, thank God. She's not well. She finally signed the insurance papers, but I think she's confused." "Insurance?" Ryan repeated, his voice hollow. Before she could lie further, there was a sharp, loud knock on the front door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was an official one. Jenna froze. A second later, Caleb Ross stepped into the entryway, holding a set of keys. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his voice casual, addressing Ryan. "You dropped these on the driveway earlier." It was the prearranged signal. Caleb's eyes did a professional, instantaneous scan of the room, the papers on the table, the amber pill bottle, the glass of water, and Jenna's face, which had turned from victorious pink to a mask of waxy, terrified white. This was my cue. I let out a low groan. My eyes rolled back, and I let my body go limp, slumping sideways in the heavy dining chair. Fainting, just as Monica had rehearsed with me. "Mom!" Ryan screamed, rushing toward me. Jenna, for the first time, looked genuinely terrified. Her plan had involved a sedated mother-in-law, not a dying one. She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking. 911. Yes, my mother-in-law. She took the wrong medicine. She's unconscious. What medicine? Ryan yelled, looking at the bottle on the table. I've never seen that bottle in my life. Caleb was already on his phone. Ambulance is on the way, he said calmly. Seconds later, headlights swept the living room. The ambulance, and right behind it, a police cruiser. Monica stepped out with the uniformed officer. She walked straight past a sputtering Jenna and a frantic Ryan. "Officer," Monica said, her voice sharp and clear. "We have reason to believe this is a case of elder abuse and potential poisoning. I request that you secure that pill bottle and the glass of water as evidence." The officer, Caleb's old partner, was all business. "Ma'am," he said to Jenna, "what exactly did Mrs. Hart take?" Jenna was trapped. It was a sedative, just a mild one. She was stressed. "A sedative you provided?" the officer asked. "No, yes. But she asked for it." Jenna stammered, her lies tangling. "That's not what the recording says," Caleb said. He held up the key fob. He didn't even press play. He just showed it to her. "We have the audio of you threatening her, forcing her to sign, and admitting you just needed her in the hospital long enough." "And Ryan," Caleb said, turning to my son. "The baby monitor didn't lie." Ryan looked as if he had been physically struck. As the EMTs were checking my vitals, I'd opened my eyes. Confused, the officer turned to me. "Mrs. Hart Evelyn, you've heard what's been said. Do you wish to file a formal report regarding a suspicion of attempted harm?" I sat up, pushing away the blood pressure cuff. I let the fake drowsiness fade, and my voice was cold, clear, and steady. I looked past my broken son, past the officer, and directly into the dead, terrified eyes of my daughter-in-law. "It's not suspicion, officer," I said. "I have the proof, and tomorrow the judge will see all of it." The trial, held weeks later, was nothing like the quiet probate hearing. This was criminal court. The prosecutor, a sharp woman from the district attorney's office, had taken the evidence from that night and combined it with Caleb's entire investigation. She stood before the jury and presented the charges against both Jenna and Ethan: conspiracy to commit financial fraud, felony elder abuse, and reckless endangerment. I was the first person they called to testify. I walked to the stand, not as the confused old woman Jenna had tried to paint, but as the person I was the sole trustee of my husband's estate. I told them everything, calmly, from the first museum comment to the moment Jenna put the pill in my hand. I explained how I had pretended to be weak, how I had played the part to catch the person who was hunting me. I paused when I felt my voice waver, not to cry, but to take a breath, to remain in control. I was not a victim. I was a survivor, and I was her star witness. The real show, however, was Caleb. He presented the evidence in a cold, logical stream. The prosecutor dimmed the lights and played the video from the smoke detector. The entire courtroom watched in silence as Jenna, her face a mask of threatening impatience, slid the papers toward me. They saw her produce the pill bottle. Then, Caleb played the audio from the key fob. The room was filled with Jenna's voice. If another accident happens, Evelyn, who do you think the court will believe? And then, the speakerphone call. Jenna's giddy, triumphant laugh. The old bat finally signed. If she just dies somewhere else, the less trouble for us. A woman in the jury put her hand over her mouth. Monica testified next, as an expert. She laid out the legal framework of the trust. She explained, in simple, devastating terms, that the house was, and always had been, my sole property. It was never Ryan's. It was never marital property. It was beyond Jenna's reach, and every action she took was not a misunderstanding, as her lawyer claimed, but a deliberate, fraudulent attempt to steal. Jenna's defense tried, feebly, to paint her as a stressed-out wife, overwhelmed by caring for a difficult and confused elder. But every time her lawyer used the word confused, the prosecutor would counter with another piece of evidence: the email from the fraudulent clinic, the audio of me reciting my financial details to Dr. Brooks, the timeline of Jenna's own calculated lies. They called Ryan to the stand. He looked like a shell of the man I knew. He wept, openly, when the prosecutor showed him the Milestone Holdings loan document, the one he had signed for over $100,000. I didn't read it, he choked out, refusing to look at Jenna. She told me it was just a formality. She said she was taking care of us. She said Mom was sick. He finally turned, his eyes finding mine across the courtroom. Mom, he whispered, I am so sorry. The verdict was quick. Jenna and Ethan were found guilty on all counts. The judge, citing the predatory nature of their crimes and the chilling, calculated abuse of trust, sentenced them both to prison. She ordered them to repay every cent associated with the fraudulent loans, and she formally nullified every document Ryan had signed. In the final property declaration, the judge confirmed what I already knew. The Hart family trust was valid, ironclad, and protected. My home was mine. My life was mine. A few weeks after the sentencing, Ryan came to the house. He stood on the bottom step of the porch, not daring to come further. Mom, he said, his voice raw. I know sorry isn't enough. I'm starting therapy. I'm trying to understand why I let her, why I didn't see. I looked at my son, my only child, his life shattered by his own weakness. I knew I still loved him, but I was not the same woman I was 6 months ago. You can come over for dinner on Sunday. Ryan, I said. My voice was firm, not cruel, but clear. But there are new rules. This house is my house. And if, one day, you inherit it, it will be my decision, and my decision alone. Not the decision of any woman who enters your life. Tonight, the air is cold with that sharp, clean Colorado chill. I'm standing on my porch, my hand resting on the wooden railing that Mark built with his own hands. I looked out at the quiet street and whispered, The secret saved me, Mark. But I don't need it anymore. I went inside, climbed the stairs to the attic, and opened the small safe. I put the trust back in. Along with the deed, I spun the combination lock. This time, as I heard the click, it wasn't the sound of fear. It wasn't the sound of a secret I had to hide. It was the sound of peace. It was the sound of a door, locked from the inside. by the woman who owned the house. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It truly means the world to me. I would just love to know where you all are tuning in from. So please, drop me a comment below, let me know, and share your own thoughts. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, give this video a like, and maybe even hit that hype button. It really does help these stories get heard by more people.